Thank you for joining us here this week on windsurftoots.com. This week will not be a expansive video. I am actually studying for a certification, my CISSP, so it's a little hectic, but I did want to get something out there to show you just a couple things that you can do to help secure your environment. And what we're going to be covering, just a couple of different things this week. And one of those will be to place various domain global groups into local computer groups. And essentially, so let's say you had like an accounting backup group. Your accounting data is very important, and you want to make sure that this accounting backup administrators group is in this backup operators group for a local workstation. We can show you how to do that. And then there's a couple other things that we're going to show you how to do with local group policy to just kind of help secure your environment, and a couple things with your systems. So I want to get right into this. One of the concepts when you're building out a user environment, you always want to make sure that you have a template user. So in this particular case, Rome here is our template user, and if you right click and if you select copy, you'll see it brings up the dialog box to create a new user. So this is really beneficial to standardize all of the users within your environment instead of simply right click and create all right click new and then user. You have to go through and remember exactly what permissions and settings they had. You always want to use a template user. And what you can do with your users is there's something really powerful that you can put on them. So if you right click and you hit properties and you go over to the accounts tab, I haven't seen a whole lot of companies that actually use this, but take a look here, logon hours. Okay, if you select this, you can actually turn off when people can log on to your system. So I just highlighted Sunday here in login denied. I know Al and my accounting users do not work on Sundays. I'm going to do logon denied there as well. I know they don't work on Saturdays. Now maybe your IT staff, of course, is going to work 24/7 in supporting the infrastructure, but your accountants, no, they will never work on Saturday or Sunday. And surely they won't work before 7 a.m. So we're going to select, and we're just going to say none of our users here are able to log on during those hours. And so we've completely blocked out Saturday and Sunday and everything before 7 p.m. So also, I want to just show you here, we would expect, I'm going to log off Mr. Al Rome to be able to log into the workstations in the accounting group. But let's say, due to conflict of interest, like if we are a public accounting firm, Mr. Al Rome is working on one client's files, and another accounting, let's say Miles, Michigan, is working on a completely different client's files. Well, it would be a conflict of interest if the accountants, if they weren't as ethical as they should be, were logging on to each other's workstation and accessing data. So what we're going to do is we are going to limit what our users can log into. And so I'm going to show you can log in, Mr. Rome can log into the system here. And this is his workstation, so that's fine. He's got his own laptop or his own desktop that he's been assigned, so he can log into it. But now, see this log on to box? Well, since we've assigned him his own computer, we're going to do, let's say, Al Rome PC. Let's say we're just going to put him there. We're going to select OK, apply, and OK. And I'm just going to reboot this system. And this is not Al Rome PC. So let's just restart this and let's see what happens if he can still log on to here. Now, you might think that this is silly, but in corporate environments, when we're dealing with, let's say, an accounting firm or a legal firm or something like that, and let's say we have users in groups, conflict of interest is actually something that we could worry about in our organization. So this is one additional layer of security that we can put in place simply to remove the temptation to even peek at something that a user shouldn't be peeking at. So we're just going to wait and finish for this to boot up, and we'll see what happens. Okay, and as you can see, it says your account is configured to prevent you from using this computer. Please try another computer. So again, some of this may seem highly restrictive, but if you are really working in a sensitive environment, these are things that they're tools that you have at your disposal to really help lock down your environment. And especially as computer breaches are becoming more and more prevalent, these are really things that you could consider doing. So let me just log back on here. Okay. And so now that we've seen some of the permissions that we can specify on a per account basis, let's take a look and see how we would move certain domain global groups into local groups here. So now we're going to move into group policy, and we're just going to edit this group policy object here. We're going to go to Windows Settings, and what we're going to do is we are going to put this accounting backup admin into, select the wrong thing here. We're going to put it into our local backup administrators group on this workstation, and I'll show you that there's nothing in there right now. Let's just wait for this to pop up here. So under local users and groups, we don't have any people in there. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to move over to this group policy object here, and we're going to go security settings and see here restricted groups. Okay. Now you have to be really careful when working with this. So because if you fat finger something, it won't give you an error if the group is not in Active Directory. So let's just make sure we have the exact name of the group. In fact, let's just copy it so we know we've got it. So copy, cancel, and we're going to do right click, add group in here, and we're going to paste it in there. So now we know we have the domain global G accounting backup group. And what do we want to add that to? So we're just going to go through here, manage, and I believe that's backup operators, but let's just make sure. And group, yep, backup operators. This is the group that we want to add this to. So you can say members of this group, so you could add other, let's say you could add accounting users or things like that to this group, but we want to make this group a member of, and so we're going to select add, and in this case it's going to be backup operators, OPRATORS. And again, you have to be really careful, because if you fat finger, it will not tell you, and then you'll just be sitting there wondering why it doesn't work. So that's one thing that you can do. Now this could be, the other option is you could say, in a restricted group, you could have, if you just had your general accounting group, if that was the group you were working with, you could also put like the accounting managers or accounting supervisors in that group too. So that's just an option for that. Now a couple other things, since accounting is a really sensitive area, we want to lock down our systems a little bit. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to go and we're going to look in the local policies and see what we can change in the local policy section. And again, that's under the security settings. So what we're going to do is we are going to go to security options, okay? And there's a couple things that we can do. Under audit, okay? And this is something that we really should be enforcing on critical systems. You see here that says shut down the system immediately if unable to log security audits. We want to define this, and we are going to set it to enabled. So a lot of times what a nefarious person will do is they will turn off logging on your hosts, and yep, we want to keep that. And that way, if they're doing something malicious, the auditing won't be there, so it will be harder to track that. So we want to make sure that our system shut down if auditing is not enabled. Next, we're going to go to accounts. And now the administrator account, and I'll show you this, is turned off by default when a workstation is moved into a domain. But let's take a look at a domain controller, and I'm just tossing this in here so it'll be something that you can use. Okay, send Control Alt Delete. So if you look here, the administrative account on a server is enabled. Okay, so what we're going to take a look at is we're going to say rename administrator account, and we're going to define this policy. Now this could actually be something really good to do on your servers because it is an administrator account and it actually will not lock out. So this specific account is very susceptible to brute force password cracking. So let's say we're going to name this WinServTootsAdmin. That's what we're going to call our account there. And again, this would be something that you would apply on your servers, but since we're in group policy here, I just want to show you where that's applied. We're going to select OK. And move this out of the way. Now another thing that we're going to take a look at is under accounts. We could do rename the guest account. But what we want to look at is guest account status. And we want to make sure that this is disabled. It usually is by default, but we want to enforce that in case a nefarious person turns it on so they can gain access to the system. Next thing, this is something that is actually very, very useful. So when again, a not nice person would try to penetrate your login, they would actually use login and passwords that were stored on the system to try to hop to other systems in the network. And it's called cached credentials. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to do interactive login, number of previous logins to cache. And as you see here, the default is 10. We're actually going to set this to 0. Now this will be a problem with laptops if they are disconnected from the domain. So you would want to make sure that a user has a local account that they can use to log into the workstation if it's a laptop. This will also increase your login and authentication traffic on your network, but usually unless you're in a very large environment, it won't saturate your key distribution servers within Kerberos. So we're going to apply here. Now these two things in conjunction, if you are locking down specific accounts, if you're not caching credentials, so let's say Al Rome here can only log on to this workstation and none of his account credentials are cached. Even if this workstation was compromised on the network, they couldn't, and they discovered his username and password, maybe through social engineering or through some sort of brute force mechanism. A, they're not cached here, so it would make them harder for them to find on this workstation. And B, his account can only log on to this system. So even if he is a local admin or something like that, he has no permissions to access any other system within the domain. So that is something that you can use to try to really harden your network. What we're going to do here too is to prevent shoulder surfing, where maybe somebody would walk behind an employee and try to get their username. Maybe a delivery man is posing to be in your network and he's trying to harvest usernames. So we're going to say do not display last username, and we are going to select this and enable it. Going to hit apply, and then we're going to use network security. And if you remember, we only gave this user certain logon hours, so this policy here will force the account to log off after those logon hours have expired. Pardon me. So we're going to apply there. So even if somebody is logged on before their hours expire, this will force them to log off. So this is another security mechanism. And then lastly, under security options, we are going to clear And where is this at here? Device. Might take me just a second to find it because I forgot where it's at. We're going to clear the page file. User account control. Okay, so here it is. We have clear virtual memory page file. So let's say if a laptop is compromised and a user was working on some sort of sensitive data, they were VPN'd in or something like that, and the data hopefully is not stored on the local system, but if they had any of that data cached in the page file, an attacker could use that page file to exploit that data. So what we want to do is we're going to clear that virtual memory page file when the system shuts down. So we're going to hit apply. Okay, so now we have our policies all put in place. Okay, and we are going to make sure that this is applied. So we're going to go right click, and we are going to do link an existing GPO and system hardening. And so now under accounting we have our system accounting GPO, and remember we're going to go into details here, and we know all of this stuff was put under the computer configuration settings, so we're going to disable the user configuration accounts. Okay, so we're going to hit yes, and now we're going to go down and we're going to do GP update and force. While that is running, we're going to do the same thing here. Click Run as Administrator. We're going to do GP Update Force. And after this is done, we're going to go through a reboot, and I'll bring you back so you don't have to sit and wait for the reboot. Okay, so exit, and we'll see when this is done rebooting. Okay, and so now as you can see here, right away there's something different. So when we would have rebooted before, it would have shown us the last usernames. And if you remember, this was one of the things that we changed in our group policy. So let's take a look here. So now we're going to log on. And let's see if that domain accounting backup administrators group is in our group here. Hopefully it is. Hopefully I didn't fat finger anything. Okay, so local users and groups and backup operators, and there we go. So as you can see, this wasn't a highly complex video that we had this week. Sorry if it seemed a little dry, but really it is a lot of these little things that help to secure a Windows environment. Things like limiting the systems that a user can log on to, whitelisting, permitting what is allowed is much better than blacklisting, trying to deny all these exceptions. And in this case, we whitelisted a system that our user, a Rome, could log into instead of trying to deny him. Permitting up the login hours, clearing the virtual memory, things like that. Putting the specific domain global groups into our local computer groups. So I hope that you did learn a little bit something here, and that you can use these methods to help secure and lock down your environment. Again, group policy is very, very powerful. It's immensely powerful, and you can really make Windows quite a secure infrastructure if you use all of the tools available to you and what Microsoft provides. Again, I really appreciate you taking the time to watch the video. Do follow along with us at our website. I'll put in the blog post all of the steps that we went through to take on these preventative measures and kind of where you can use them in your environment. Also, we have been getting some questions, and so what I think I'm going to do is actually add a question reply page to our website, because a lot of viewers are sending us questions that they have about the videos, just things that they might not understand. So do swing by the website itself and take a look at some of the questions that other viewers are asking. It's a great way to learn and kind of discover things that maybe you didn't think about. Again, thank you for watching this week here on windsurftoots.com. Check us out on the website, and please do come again next week.